Hello, everyone. Thank you for joining us for Symbiosis Weekends. Today we have Roxana, and she's going to be talking to us about her artistic journey during the mentorship. So, Roxana, take it away.
Hi everyone, thank you so much for being here today. I'll now try to share my screen. Okay, so it's good, yes? Okay,
It's good.
my name is Roxana and thank you so much again for being here today. I would like to start with the beginnings in my calligraphy journey. So let me see if I can. Okay, there we go. So, since I have memory, I've been always fascinated with letters, and I found myself constantly copying fonts, but I never really considered myself as an artist. And it was until 2020 when I was scrolling through social media and I came a post about a calligraphy book, and it was until then when I found out that it was something that you could actually learn, not just admire. So when at first I attempted with brushes and with a regular notebook, but as you can imagine, I got the wrong materials, or I'd like to think that maybe they were just defective. So I kept trying and I was getting nowhere. But at the same time, I was fascinated that there was something called basic strokes. And I also felt a little bit discouraged because I could see all these colorful letters, but it felt like modern calligraphy wasn't for me. So soon after, I came across something called pointed pen. And it felt like love at first sight because I was so frustrated but fascinated at the same time. And once again, I got that maybe I got the wrong materials. So shortly after that, I was introduced to the amazing world of vintage nibs. And it got a little bit out of hand. So knowing I wouldn't be the only one frustrated having defective nibs, I decided to open an Etsy store. And with all this world of vintage nibs and the pointed pen scripts, I felt like I finally found what I was looking for. And I also found incredible people along the way that offered me a hand, words of encouragement, tips, and also shared their love for letters with me. So thanks to all these wonderful letters and tools, I made friendships. And even my husband told me once that it looks like you found your people. So when Dorothy asked me about quite a few times if I wanted to join this mentorship program, my answer was no, because I've seen all the amazing artists joining this mentorship and the great things that they do, all the achievements they've made, and I knew I wasn't one of them. I was really scared about that, and as I have no artistic background at all and I have no experience, I haven't taken any workshops, whether it's online or in person. So all this time I've been learning on my own. And she was really kind to give me a little, or I must say a big push. So she took me in this mentorship. And at first I asked myself so many questions because I was thinking, how do you turn calligraphy into art? How do you go from an admirer to a creator? How do you find your voice as an artist? Or how do you see yourself into the things you create? So to find the answer to this question, I knew I had to get out of my comfort zone. Because if you stay in the comfort zone, it's a little bit too easy and there's no room for growth. But also, if you go to the other extreme, it's too hard and you can feel frustrated. So there's something called zone of proximal development, which is the learning zone, where you can feel like you're growing, learning something with help of others, like this mentorship program. So when the time came to start thinking about the projects, I hoped I could find an answer to these questions. So for the first project, I was asking myself, what was the thing that brought me here today and being here with you? And I wanted to make connections with the beginnings of my calligraphy, but I also wanted to do a project that would reflect my path of discovery and self-learning, So I thought about maybe I could dust off my practice pages that I hadn't seen for the longest time, probably since I wrote on them. So there's something here. Okay, so then I going through all these practice pages helped me to find the answer. It was all these practice pages that brought me here today. And what I wanted to do with them was to give them a new life, and I wanted to transform them and shape them into a basket. So here you can see the the process of making this first basket, but the shape that I had in mind at first didn't quite work. The paper was really thick, it was really hard to work with, it wasn't bending how I thought it would. So I kept trying, and as you can see on the last picture on the right, it was the first attempt and it wasn't looking great. So then I kept trying until it started to get shape. And for me, each page was a single strand, and it was representing growth, also frustration, intention, connections, and lessons learned along the way. So as you can see, here are some of the pictures of the process, how it started to look like a basket. So here you can see the finished beads, and because of all the connections, because of all the lessons, all the people that have been making me company throughout all this journey of calligraphy, I wanted to call it Weaving Paths because for me, this basket represents weaving my days to this day. And the materials that you see inside that basket are those very first tools that I think they were defective. So maybe these were the ones that set me off to the calligraphy world. And now having these transformed pages into a basket, the hope is that it will hold new memories and experiences along the way. So now let's move on to the next project. This one's a very special one, and you'll hear a little bit more about the idea that sparked the inspiration behind during Gabby, which was my mentor. And for this one, I wanted to represent what it meant for me having the chance to share all these past months with these amazing artists, with Ali, with Ines, and with Gabi. We found out soon enough that we shared our native language, which is Spanish. And part of this task was also to represent each member within the piece. It was an amazing experience being able to peek inside an artist's mind and seeing the way they work, the way they come up with ideas, the way they think, okay, so maybe this is not the way, maybe let's move to the other way, the way that they shared and opened their hearts and all the knowledge that they were sharing with us, all the things that we got to share during all these past months, it was like for me seeing like or made me think of the blooming process that an artist goes through. So this project actually was the last one I made. So it made me think about what brought us together, which was this project, the Art of Letters project. And since I didn't write with a pointed pen during the mentorship, I wanted to write it in Spanish using a pointed pen variation that I came up with. So also when I was thinking about what I wanted to do for this project, I was thinking about my favorite painter and the way he thought about flowers, because he saw flowers as a symbol of new life and hope. And that made me want to incorporate a flower to this work. So once I roughly had the idea of what I wanted to do, I started experimenting about creating a paper flower. And at first, it didn't quite look like the way I wanted. Somehow they look like crabs or like palm trees. Like at some point, I couldn't see them as flowers anymore. I'm not sure why. But then I even tried writing on the petals, but like the light was not captured the way I wanted. So maybe that's an idea for a future project. And also I wanted to display the words and the decorative elements that would represent each member, but in a different way. So I was thinking about dots, maybe something in embroidery. I wasn't really sure, but I was like playing around with the final look. And after a few attempts, this was the final result, which I called florecer, which is blooming in Spanish. And each member is represented with the decorative elements on the letters based on our locations. So for instance, the capital E, you can see the flourished letter and the decoration, and that's Ali, which she lives in Chicago. Then at the bottom, at the very, very bottom of the crossbar T, you can see a little detail, which is Ines, and she's based in Argentina. Then if we go up to the A, you can see a little decoration that's out and it's different from the other ones. And that is my mentor Gabi, and she's based in Barcelona. And then at the top it's me, and I'm based in Poland. So this work, I embrace the idea that creativity is an ever evolving and it's constantly unfolding like a flower. It's a blooming journey of not only about a personal, but also an artistic growth. It's a deep and learning experience, not only about art, but also about ourselves and others. It's about collaboration. It's about being there for the others. It's about sharing, about offering different points of view, and also sharing tears of joy, tears of sadness. So that's why I wanted to put the flower in here, like representing all of us blooming after this mentorship. So if we now move back in time, this journey has been for me an answer to a very personal experience because due to health reasons, I had to take a long break from calligraphy, and I was uncertain if I would ever come back to the calligraphy world and how would that look like. So it was during my visit to the Van Gogh's Museum, right at the end, there's this section where you can, as they call it, experience him with your senses. And I thought, how can I do it with calligraphy? Because I had all these practice pages, but I couldn't feel the letters. You can feel the paper texture, but I couldn't feel what I wrote. So while I was searching for the answer, I thought about the quote that I wanted to use for this project, which was, "Everything blooms in its own time." And this quote helped me to understand that progress takes place according to its own timeline, not necessarily on our schedule. So it also, this phrase for me encourages patience and acceptance. And it's a reminder that rushing or comparing ourselves is more harmful than helpful. So going back to that question about how can I feel what I write, the answer I think was always there, but I just needed to look closer. And that's how embroidery came back to my life. Because in Mexico, embroidery is a big part of our culture. But I was never interested. I never tried it before. It was too colorful for me. So it was like a foreign world, but at the same time, it was a known world. And as you can see here on the image on the left, it was my practice page. And after those stitches, I felt like I was ready to jump in and experiment a little bit more once I finished this page. And here on the middle and on the right, you can see close-ups to that page. So for this project, what I wanted to do, I wanted to weave my country of origin, which is Mexico, here on the left, and my adoptive country, which is Poland, on the right. And I thought about using a traditional handmade paper, which is called amate. And this is actually crafted from the bark of trees. And the production process dates back from the pre-Columbian times, where it was used for codices, for ceremonial purposes, for artistic expression as well. And the art of making this paper was actually nearly lost during the colonial period, but it was revived during the 20th century and is still made according to the traditional process in a state called Puebla. So in order for me to weave my country of my adoptive country, I decided to use a thread that is made in Poland. So once I was like feeling a little bit more comfortable with these materials, I got to know them. It took me actually a while to understand these materials and its limitations. because as you can see here, the paper was tearing badly because it's a very delicate paper, very delicate and fragile paper. And probably the reason why this happened was because of my lack of patience and heavy hand. So I was like trying to determine how I wanted the letters to look like, about the spacing, in order for me to do not harm even more the paper and compromise the whole piece. So then once I felt like I understood the limitations of these materials, I started to work on the final piece. And here you can see on the left picture right at the top how the paper thickness is uneven. As you can see, some parts are more translucent, some parts a little bit darker. And it's because of that, it's a handmade crafted paper. So each paper is very unique. So then with the planning and the punching the holes, the embroidery process, 2 months went by. And when I was about to finish this paper, it felt incomplete, like something was missing, like it didn't feel like it was a finished piece. So then making an introspection, I remembered Frida Kahlo's painting, which is called As Dos Fridas. And this painting unexpectedly marked me very deeply. So that was the answer. I wanted to do this quote twice, but differently. So for the second version of this project, I use the same paper, but now in a white cream color. And I only wish you could feel the paper because it's like a velvet surface, but it's matte. But at the same time, if you can see on the left, it's a little bit sparkling. It's like a very nice experience to just feel the paper. And also I used the same polish made thread, but then this time in black. So what I loved about like embroidering letters is that it offers you the best of both worlds. From one side, you get to see the finished piece, but from the other side, you get to see all the work behind it. And this white paper actually was even more delicate than the brown paper. So for this one, I needed like a backup paper to support all the stitches because as I was stitching through the paper, it was getting heavier and heavier. So it was getting a little bit harder to continue working with the letters. So I had to use another paper to support the back of this project only. So here you can see the backside of the dark paper, which is like all the work behind it. And this dark version for me represents the darkness and the uncertainty during the blooming process. It's like you don't know whether it will work or not, if one day it will ever bloom, if one day the project will ever see the light, or if it will be completed. So that's why, because of all these personal reasons, I decided to call this piece Stitch Sentiments, and this is the first one. And then the light version represents emerging into the light. It's like an act of resilience and acceptance. And the magic of these pieces is that at first glance, when you see them, it may look like a monoline script, but the magic is that once you touch the letters and go through each one of the strokes, you can feel the contrast of the strokes. You can feel what you see when you're writing with a pointed pen, the thin and thick strokes. And this one was called Stitch Sentiments too, because it was the second version of the first one, just like in the Frida Kahlo painting, Das Dos Fridas. So now let's move on to the last work. And for me, it turned out to be the most special one because one of the goals for this mentorship was to do not come and do the same things like basic drills or writing traditional scripts using a pointed pen. I didn't want to come and do what I always do. So at the time when Dorothy asked me if I wanted to join the mentorship, I felt like I was stuck doing the basic drills. It felt like I didn't know where to go anymore or what to do with the things I've learned so far. So only in the calligraphy and the traditional world of hand flourishing made me feel like there was a room for creativity within me, allowing me to play around all these flourishes, but also staying inside the rules, because that's one thing I really like about calligraphy, that there are rules to follow. That's why I'm maybe not so much into the modern or the expressive calligraphy. So when I was thinking about this work, which was actually the first one that I started to work with, I saw it like a flight of discovery to explore if I could make the delicate strokes of calligraphy come to life. So what you are seeing right now are some of the designs that I had made for this project. And in order for me to do something, I need to visualize it first and then work towards that vision. So I thought about the color combination of the design, and I made just a small one first, just to experiment how it looked like or what type of paper I needed, and also to troubleshoot the issues that I could come across that I hadn't considered at the time. So when I finished this piece, I felt proud because it was like a step closer to my goal and that vision that I had in mind. But at the same time, it felt like a big failure because I couldn't really see myself reflected in that work, and the bird felt off. Like there wasn't a smooth transition like with pointed pen, but it was like a learning process, and it helped me to take notes and get closer to what I had in mind. So then I was thinking, what is my favorite color combination when it comes to offhand flourishing? And that was the answer that I didn't think before. So I quickly moved on and got the materials to experiment again. And I thought that I had the materials that I needed, the paper, the thread, but I forgot the most expensive material, which was patience. It required a lot of patience because, as you can see here, it if a wrong move, or if the holes were too close, would mean that the paper would tear up badly. Or as you can see on the right, the thread, because it's a metallic thread, would tangle in a way that couldn't be fixed, and it would compromise the whole piece. So having this in mind, and as I mentioned before, this was the first project that I was working with. It was the first time that I tried this metallic embroidery. It was before I made the other works with the letters. So I kind of saw what I was getting myself into, that it wasn't going to be something easy because of a lot of reasons that I'll tell you later about. So this was the second attempt. And with the second attempt, I felt like I created something where I could see myself reflected. And for me, it was like this bird was soaring between the ink of tradition and the threads of innovation. So here you can see that I'm getting a little bit closer to what I was looking for, but again, the transitions were not smooth. And this one was like an A4 size paper. So I wanted to do something bigger than this. So then I started to work. Once I took notes and I felt like, okay, so I know what I need to keep in mind for to make the final piece work, I started to work on it. So here you can see some of the progress of that vision that I had in mind. And hours of work translated into a little bit of more than 3 months of work. So some of the reasons were the size of the piece and all the intricate work, but also that during the process I had a lot of blisters because I had to make the holes and the embroidery process, and I needed time so the blisters could heal. And also, interestingly, this happened with all the pieces because with the basket, the paper was so hard that it got me blisters weaving it. Then with the letters, it involved embroidery, and again, I got blisters. With the flower, I didn't think that would happen, but it did because you have to shape the petals and each paper that was like a very thick paper. So that's why it took more time than I had in mind, because I needed time to heal my fingers after all those blisters. So here you can see how I started to work with what I felt there would be the most hard strokes to work with, because if something would get ruined, I would have the chance to start all over again without having so much progress ahead. But thankfully, that didn't happen. I'm not sure how, but I got myself a little bit of patience to work throughout this piece. So here you can see again the finished piece on one side and all the work behind it on the other side. And what these birds reminds me, it reminds me of the soul of an artist that is born to fly freely, soaring within the wings with the wings of imagination and flying from dream to dream on the currents of inspiration, and also going through the skies of creativity, finding its voice along the way. And just like a bird spreads its wings, we all have an artist within us waiting to break free. So this is because of all these reasons I call this piece Threaded Wings, because it was an experience about discovering how letters or something traditional can be transformed into art. So here's another picture of the final piece. And this experience also helped me to find my voice as an artist that I didn't know I had, because it was by doing something traditional in a non-traditional way, the way I found that voice. And it was by blending elements that I've never tried before. And all these things made the experience very challenging, but at the same time very rewarding, because I was stepping into completely new ground for me. So it made me to think in new and or it pushed me to think in new ways, forging my path and crafting something that I finally could feel proud of. So I am deeply thankful with Dorothy for offering me this chance. I hope she's not regretting asking me to join the mentorship. I'm also very thankful for my mentor because she was always there, holding ourselves accountable, always sharing her valuable time with us, sharing her words of encouragement, and offering us a different point of view. Also with Ali, that I felt like she was the voice of the wisdom in the group. She always had like very interesting insights that was bringing into our group. To Inez, that she was always bringing a smile to us, always pushing us, encouraging us, always telling us that yes, you're doing great in the hard times that we had, and that at the end we were bonding even more. So thank you everyone for being here and listening to my presentation today.
Wonderful. So incredible. Do y'all have questions for Roxana? Anyone has questions? Actually, you can unmute since there's not that many of us. Roxana, what was the most difficult? Learning calligraphy with ink or embroidery on paper?
Good question. I think the calligraphy with ink was more hard because I it's just that because I was doing that by myself. I had
Mm,
to figure things out in the hard way. So, and then really trying to have a model to pursue. There was something already, there was a set template that you are supposed to follow. But with the embroidery, I felt like I was more free. There was no set template to follow. So I thought like maybe it's a little bit more freedom.
mm.
But thinking about a physical way, the embroidery was harder because writing with a pointed pen didn't give me blisters like with embroidery. So
Oh no.
yeah, but I enjoyed both of the things. It was like I knew like when it started to look in a certain way that I had to stop and take a break so it wouldn't happen. But I loved both of them, so that'll
Mm.
be my answer.
I want to ask you how many pieces, I mean, we see the finished product, but how many pieces did you destroy along the way? How many
No,
spoiled
just the
pieces?
ones that you saw right now during the presentation. It was like the only ones that
Really? Oh,
really
really?
got destroyed. Yeah, it was
Wow,
only those ones.
amazing.
It was only
Amazing.
those ones because I wanted to test the paper and how it worked with the embroidery, if the thread was going to work or not. And then, as you could see on a picture with the black and golden thread, that paper didn't work at all. So I had to get another one. And then I tested a little bit. And then I thought, yeah, that looks good. It should work. So I was jumping right into the final pieces.
Mm.
Maybe I,
There,
and I was hoping that they would work in the end, and thankfully they did.
yeah. There is another question. Maria Lopez says, will you continue with embroidery?
Yes. Yeah, yes. Gabby was always telling us that remember, we have time, you have to finish the pieces. You can explore, but for now, just she was like trying to keep us together that we wouldn't lose ourselves within the exploration part.
Mm. Mm. Yeah.
So I was like, I think it was that I was like, there was a time set where we had to finish pieces. She was telling us, okay, so we have this month to work on the first piece and finish that, then the second one and the third one. So I guess that also helped me to just be focused on the one piece.
Mm.
But the only two pieces that I disregarded were the gray and white one, and then the other black with gold, the first one. And then after that, I jumped into the final pieces, but then I knew I had to be very careful and I had to be very patient.
Was there a reason why you chose to work with paper and not fabric?
I don't know. It's just that I felt like a combination that maybe I haven't explored. So I thought that maybe it would be interesting to bring the paper from the traditional world and then mixing it with the embroidery.
Yeah. Do other people have questions for Roxana? Because yeah, if not, I will continue to ask.
I have one question.
Yes, Alicia.
Yeah, about I was thinking if this experience changed your way to experience letters, because I'm wondering if now that letters for you are tactile, that you can experience with your hands and not with your eyes only. Uh, and if you are going to see the letters from now on this way always, it happens with the sculptors or with things with people who work with 3D. But calligraphy is always like more in on the plain 2D paper world. But and you're spending so much time and so much dedication on building this in a way you can feel it with your hands. What do you think about is going to happen with you looking at letters, in the future?
I think I think that was the point where I broke the wall because I would only see letters, as the basic strokes. An A, I would see it just as an A, a B as an B as a B. So I think that thinking about like a way how I could feel the letters made me think about they are not just letters. They represent a message, but also they represent emotion. They represent something about the person that is using them as a tool to express themselves. So I think I never thought about seeing the letters more than just a letter. So it was actually that once you see them as a shape or as a form, then you can transform it in ways that you never thought before. So it was then when I understood the expressive calligraphy because I thought, how can like what are the rules? How long should the A be that then it won't look like a B anymore? But I guess that's not the point. It's about seeing the letters, but just as an image, as something that you can experiment and see how far you can stretch them, whether it's with I don't know, with painting or with making a sculpture or the way you do the stones. You need to you see the letters, but you see them in a way that now they are like something artistic, not just a letter. So and I never thought about that. So I guess that now I understand a little bit more the artistic and expressive world that it's not something that has to be legible. There's a message behind and beyond all those lines or strokes that doesn't have to be legible in order for someone to feel connected and in order for them to represent something.
Yeah. So I remember that when I first, oh wait, there's a question from Maria. You mentioned Vincent van Gogh and Frida Kahlo. What artists and calligraphers inspire you?
That's a long question. So my favorite one is Madarash. He's my favorite one because he was so precise with the lines and he could make something very traditional, but something very playful, but like breaking the rules, but also he had rules. So I guess that he is like the one I always look for. So that would be the short answer.
Sure. So I wanted to ask you, when at first I approached you to say, do you want to be a part of the mentorship? So for everybody else who doesn't know, I had actually asked Roxana for like 2 years, maybe three. And then she was considering, but each time she would say no, right? And then the last time we spoke, it was actually people like Sabina and the other mentees who encouraged her, right? So I wanted to know, and something that you said to me, Roxana, at the time was, I think I can learn on my own. Let me go and improve and get better first, then I will come in to join. And you felt that you could make this journey sort of like on your own, right? So between that time and then where you are now, having finished the mentorship cycle, how has your thoughts about this changed?
It changed completely because I was like, because it's just that since I was small, I was like always like learning on my own, doing things on my own time, and I've been always like that. So then when I wanted to learn something new, I was like, I always loved that phase where you're exploring, discovering things and learning and like that. But then it's back to that zone of proximal to, I don't remember the name, but the circles that you saw during the
Yes.
presentation, where I saw that yes, you can do things on your own, you can learn on your own, but there's not a lot of space for growth if you things on your own. But also, if you go to the other extreme where you are doing things that are impossible to do, you'll feel frustrated. And again, there's no space for growth. So you have to find that sweet spot when you actually need others to grow. You need how Alicia was talking to us about collaboration. You need others to grow. You can't bloom on your own. You can't. It's a shared path. And whether it's someone telling you, yes, you can do it, or there's nothing to be scared of, or Dorothy, yeah, join the mentorship. Like I think I would have never thought about mixing a traditional script with embroidery and all these ideas because I'll be just on my own and doing the drills that I always do and nothing more than that. So there's that space is not only for you to grow, but also for others to grow with you,
That's true.
to see
Yeah,
them
together with
growing,
you.
to feeling
Yeah,
inspired.
true. Well, Gabriella, do you want to share something, your thoughts about Roxana and her journey?
Oh, I'm very proud about her work, and she's a very sweet lady and very patient with all of us, of course. And I think maybe she could discover something new, and in a different way. Maybe she was looking for better letters and writing better, and with this kind of approach and sharing the sessions and meetings, we became different, all different. I think we all listened and shared different things, and it was very nice. We were growing up together.
Yeah, that's nice. It's lovely. That's great. Do the rest of your team members want to add to the conversation? I will just put all of you on because this is the mentoring group that Roxana is was growing up with.
Very nice.
Yeah, when I first put all of you together, it was sort of like an experiment because you were Spanish speaking. That's one thing, but I know that you have such different cultures. You have lived in so many different countries. I mean, it's like us. We all speak English. We share English, but we are so different, right? So it doesn't mean that just because you have a common language shared, it doesn't mean that then automatically we have the same kind of challenges with crossing cultures. So I just wanted to ask whether you have any funny stories about
We
crossing
talk too
cultures
much.
as a group. Huh? You talk too much, is it?
Yes.
Yeah, I think we are like, we are all Latin also, not only Spanish speakers from Latin. So we tend to talk a lot over the other person when we are together. So, and will be some very impolite and rude for other cultures, but between us, we're like just talking that way. So that was kind of fun. I just want to say about Roxana that the level of detail she works on is unbelievable, and is and the standards she put herself on to develop something also is admirable. It's like some people are more like like to explore more or play more. She's committed. She wants to do something, and she try until she get at this point. With this embroidery, we saw her, saying, it's not good enough. It's not good enough. It doesn't look the transitions, from the stroke to things to thick and are no good because the standards on the pointed uh, pen tool. So but until she worked and worked until she got it exactly as she wanted, and that's huge. I don't do that myself. It's like I'm just jump to another thing. She stays and stays until she does that. So I learned that from her, and I think um, it's it's amazing the way she works. Yeah.
Sorry, Ro, you need to put your needle on a frame too.
Maybe. It actually got bent.
Yes.
Got bent. Oh dear.
Yes, it's bent, and it's the one that I used all the way.
One
The
needle.
only
Very
one.
nice.
Yeah, it got lost. I found it again many times, but it survived.
So what is there like a favorite moment for you, Roxana, in the whole mentorship journey? What was the favorite takeaway?
Just seeing them, I was just there like fascinated because they had so much knowledge, they had so many things to share, and sometimes I would just stay there and I was like, or taking notes about names that they would say, or sharing the experiences, but the way they share that, yes, and the way that I was said, like we all are Latin, so it was like a very honest thing. So it was like sharing, like not like being polite in a way, like we were just sharing things how we felt, and seeing them work and seeing them, oh, okay, so I'm not crazy, because it's like we're all crazy because we're like, oh, I saw this, I want to try that, maybe I'll try this, maybe I'll try that. And Gabby was like, I'm that way also, but we can't do this now because we have to finish, and everything has to be ready for November. And then Alicia was like traveling all the time, and she was like, I did this and I did that, maybe I'll try this. No, that didn't work. Now I'll try that. And I was like, wow. Like it's something that happens. So I think the hardest thing was for all of us, it's like we're trying to stay like focused on one thing. But during the presentations, we were like taking everything out and then we were working on our own and then again sharing. So that was the fascinating thing for me because I've never been among artists. I've never seen someone working. We always see the final pieces, but you don't really get to see the behind the scenes. So I think seeing that was my favorite part.
And I think that this group is very diverse. Like Alicia, your experience is very different. You're also three-dimensional, your art. Gabriella, and I think that is very enriching, isn't it, to watch each other, how you think, how you work. So yeah, this is different from like when we take a class, you learn from the teacher. This is really like a behind the scenes. So I'm just so glad that you said yes to this, Roxana, because
I
no
hope you don't
one
regret that.
tried. But yeah, that's awesome. Does anybody else want to weigh in on this conversation? I can see you, Sabina. You were instrumental. You were the one that talked her over the edge.
Yes, you pushed me.
Yeah,
Come
I
on.
talked.
Vermente.
Yeah, I
Yeah.
knew what a good mentor you are, Gabriela. So that Roxana ended up with you as her mentor was, I think, perfect. And I'm so happy for you that you were courageous and brave enough to go on this journey because I think I have a similar background to you. I can feel you when you say I like my rules and I like these very traditional classical hands and I have a frame and I can move inside that frame, but I'm very safe and secure within that framework. And stepping outside that frame and discover what uniquely you can bring to this art it takes courage, and I'm so happy for you that you did that, and the outcome is just beautiful. I'm so happy for you.
Thank you so much, Sabine, for all your words. And during the mentorship, I actually approached to her and I told her, this is hard. This is not nice how you said in the presentation. All the presentations look so nice and peaceful. And I was telling her, this is frustrating. It's not like that. And she told me, well, yeah, that's the experience. And I'm like, oh, okay, so I'll let it flow.
Yeah, but that's it. I mean, I shared last year how many things I started and that weren't for me. I tried embroidery on paper. It really wasn't for me. So I feel the pain you went through. And I tried so many things, and I really, for the longest time, wasn't sure I would find something I felt comfortable with. And it was so helpful when Gabriela did the same thing to us she did to you. She just told us, okay, and now you start producing. Now you commit to one piece, and next month you commit to your next piece. And that is so helpful. So yeah, I felt that when you when you were talking about that.
Ines,
I just want to say a little word to my dear Roxana. Today, I am bad, but you were wonderful, Roxana, my dear friend. And I see on the horizon only lights and applause for you. You are great.
Thank you so much, Ines, for
You
being
too.
there. You're always in my heart. And thank you so much for being there because I was sometimes coming to the sessions and I was like unsure, like I didn't have this artistic background or all this experience like all of them. And it felt intimidating to see that when they were talking about all their achievements and showing their pieces. And it was a little intimidating for me to be like, yeah, just do drills with pointed pen, and it's what I've been doing. And Inez was always like telling me, "You're fantastic! Wow, how did you do that? And you're incredible!" And she always had a big smile, and I was like, if a huge artist like her is telling you those words, it helped me to keep going. And also at first Gabby allowed us to experiment, and I did a lot of things like making my own pigments and then origami things, and I don't even remember now the things that I was doing. But every time I was coming, Inez was telling me, "Oh, that's fabulous, you're doing great." And I was like, "Really? I believe you. I'll keep trying."
Love you, love you. You are wonderful.
Oh, thank you, Inez. Thank you so
Go
much for
ahead. Go
everything.
ahead. You're excellent.
Thank you.
So there was a question from Maria, like when did this group start the program? And I actually have it on record because I take pictures of everyone. The very first meeting was in 11th of February. So it has been 9 months. You have given birth, Gabriella?
Not so much pain. Not so much pain.
Yeah, it's 9 months, right? So, that's how long it takes to make a baby grow up. So awesome. So I'm very pleased, very happy for you. Yeah, well, I guess that brings us to the end of the presentation. I'm going to stop the recording.